Hey, Rob, here we are for another new media show. Everyone, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Todd.
We got,
Host podcast movement.
yes, we got a live one today.
Show me
Yeah.
the money, Todd.
Show me the money. That's your theme? Me is I'm being a little nicer. Recap. I got the recap going on here.
Well, that's also part of this, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm shutting down some preview streams. Okay, there we save some bandwidth. Um, I walked away from, let's just put it this way. My biggest complaint is always, do we see enough creators?
Yeah,
I saw enough creators. Um, you know,
but they were all pretty much
oh,
local
they were
people
local.
to Dallas, right?
Yeah, I guess let's back up. Let's start. We got in there. Well, I got in Sunday. I probably really didn't need to get in until Monday
Yeah.
because they didn't let us in to set up until the afternoon. So I could have saved 180 or 200 or 300 or whatever the hotel cost was for one night. So anyway, got in there, got set up Monday, and then one thing I noticed immediately was, whoa, Libsyn's got this big, massive, 20 by 20 booth or whatever it was. And then there was just a smattering of other vendors. I don't know, what was there, 20, maybe 20 other vendors?
Yeah. Yeah. And so before we dive into too much, I mean,
Yeah.
there may be people that are watching this that maybe don't know anything about podcast movement. So
Yeah.
let's just share. Podcast movement happened last week down in Dallas, and it has been historically it's about 11-year running annual podcasting conference. It's been known as the largest podcasting conference really in the world, though I would say it's maybe lost that
Well,
mantle
it's
now.
in the United States,
Right.
not in the world
Right.
anymore.
Right, and I'm not even sure it's even the biggest podcast conference even in the United States anymore.
Oh,
So,
yeah, compared to this year's numbers, for sure.
yeah, I think Podfest is probably as big or
Yeah,
bigger
very,
than
yeah,
podcast movement now.
yeah.
So this is a conference that's been pivotal in the podcast industry since 2014. And so, each year has been a completely, different experience, but also a reflection of where we're at in the podcast medium, right? From this balance between kind of the business side of podcasting and the creator side of podcasting, which historically have kind of, and this year was plain to see, is a conflicting prioritization for the industry.
Yeah, I was worried about the numbers. We talked about it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine in the Dallas-Fort Worth area had gotten an email 3 or 4 days before Podcast Movement said, hey, we got a special price ticket for you that are local. And I think his ticket was 170 or 100, something like that, $170 maybe. And considering what everyone else paid for a ticket, it paid off to be in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And
Well, the normal ticket that a creator, if you came in as a creator,
yeah,
if you got, let's say, like a discount code or something like that,
Yep.
got you a discount into the event, it got the price down to just a little bit over $300 for a
so significant discount then for the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But be honest
Yeah.
with you, I'm glad they did it.
Yeah.
It made the show, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But
ticket. Yeah, it really tells you something
Yeah.
about what they need to do in the future.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course, Tuesday morning, the first, or maybe when they made the announcement, there was an announcement that Podcast Movement had acquired Sounds Profitable. And of course, there was much discussion about, was it actually Sounds Profitable acquiring Podcast Movement? But after we heard the explanation,
Well, it was also said it was a merger, which
Yeah.
confuses it even more, right?
yeah, so there was some conflicting language. But my understanding is that Podcast Movement did acquire Sounds Profitable.
Mm-hmm.
They made Brian Barletta of Sounds Profitable the president of Podcast Movement and everything else. Dan, first time I ever seen Dan smiling at an an event. I mean, he's always running
He was
around.
almost giddy.
Yeah, you're always
Yeah,
running
right.
around like with a scowl. So
Right.
Dan now is in charge of their
The
events
logistical
division.
side of the
Yeah.
event side.
So
Right.
the event side. And then, so now Brian and Sounds Profitable, and Tom is still going to do Tom's stuff at Sounds Profitable. That's my understanding.
Mhm.
So now you've got Brian in charge of Podcast Movement and
And sounds profitable,
and
which is
Sounds
going to
Profitable.
continue its brand and its presence out there.
Right. So my initial reaction was, interesting. And I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I'm just trying to, and then, so I guess it was Monday night, or maybe it was Tuesday night. I don't know. I ran into, they had, Sound Possible actually had a open bar event, and I ran into Tom real quick, and everyone's got a cocktail in their hand. Of course, Tom's not drinking; he's drinking water, or instant death, whatever that thing whatever that drink he drinks.
Yeah.
And and
Liquid death. Or
liquid
something
death.
Like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
And I didn't want to talk too much business, because I'd grabbed a cocktail too, and I basically said, "Hey, Tom, congratulations, and got to get, my main thing is get the creators back." That was my 30-second or 60-second interaction with him. And Tuesday, when the event started, I had low expectations, and we had already decided internally before the event that we weren't coming back. We weren't going to renew. And it was evident that a lot of other people already made that decision because there wasn't a lot of people there. But lo and behold, at least from my perspective, we started getting people we weren't, in the old days, we'd be 4 or 5 deep, and I'd have 3 or 4 people there, and we would we'd walk away from the event with 250, 300 contacts. So we might be 1 or 2. There might be 1 or 2 people at the table, and again and again, creators, new creators, looking to create content. And again, where are you from? Dallas, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, and then the surrounding, Waco. It's all surrounding the Metroplex within about an hour. Of course, Houston's 5 hours away. But so anyway, we had, and it was, again, the people coming to the booth some were relatively new, and there was some that were there that were looking to leave. Matter of fact, there was a definite winner on who's losing customers. I won't talk about that certain company. It was different from the event before. And, so we know where there's weakness now based upon those conversations. But, so, I walked away from the 2 days of, we had our slow times, but I walked away from the event thinking that we would have maybe 50 badges scanned. And it turned out to be about double that. I think we had 84. And there were some people I couldn't scan, so I had cards or contact information. So between the intermix, probably about 100. So
was it a balance of people that already had a podcast that wanted to shift their hosts, or was it entirely new podcasters?
It was
a balance of the two.
There was, of course, some people that had some, like we talked to one gentleman, he has 80 shows. He's looking for a new home.
Oh, on a network side.
On a network side. So, that if we'd had that conversation with just that guy alone, and if that converted, that takes care of the whole show. That's a big deal. That's a big move client. But the rest of them are just getting started, or some people on Spotify and they didn't know what they're doing, or, so the conversation was good. Now there was some B2B stuff intermixed in there, but not as much. And we've talked to almost all those vendors in the past. Someone was complaining on my LinkedIn post that we weren't being friendly to other vendors, but you're staying focused. You're trying to talk to people. It isn't my job to go and talk to other businesses unless I think there's a business opportunity.
Right.
And some of the businesses, you couldn't even tell what they did because they had nothing on their table. You'd see just a name, like, what is this? And there was, of course, we've always been known for having a lot of paper and swag, but the traffic was, and when I got done, I'd seen Tom in the hallway just passing. I was same floor of my hotel, and he was on his way somewhere, and I was on the way to my room. I said, "Hey, Tom, I'm satisfied." That's the word I use. I'm satisfied with the show. We had good traffic. Excited to see what is potential for the next show. And Friday morning, sitting in the waiting for the airplane because they changed my flight, and anyway, I had some extra time, and I typed up a LinkedIn post that got quite a bit of, I think it's still getting traffic, and basically say podcast movement 2025, an inflection point, and Brian weighed in and took the input, and a lot of other people did too, and I think there's a lot of good stuff in there for them. But podcasting, at least up until today, it has shifted from its grassroots beginnings, and it's definitely largely mainstream.
Yeah, we've grown up, Todd.
Yeah. And so I think, and again, my biggest griper has always been that cost, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday show. Yeah, this is nothing new. I've talked about this a million times. Yep. So have you. So I think they'll take into consideration wherever they decide to go in New York. And that's another thing. They said, no, San Diego. We're not going to San Diego. We're going to New York. From my perspective, going to New York was probably, it's probably the smart thing that they should have done because that's what's New York, the third largest city in the world or something, or maybe it's huge, right?
Yeah, all the boroughs around it, and all that stuff.
And in Boston, and you got Jersey, and you've got this huge metroplex. They're going to draw people just because, they're going to make the numbers probably worth it just because of where the show's going to go. I don't think you'll draw people outside of the metroplex because if September in New York, it doesn't matter when you go to New York.
Well, I think that they definitely need to do like what you suggest. They need to have 1-day passes.
Yeah, 1-day passes.
They need to have a 3-state marketing outreach campaign.
Yep.
To get local people aware of the event.
Yep.
And with a decent price ticket, they can come in. Kind of like what the podcast show does. I think there's a lot of lessons from the podcast
there's for sure.
But podcast movement needs to learn.
Now, the challenge that they've got to balance, and I understand this, business people don't like to be at a show on Saturday. They don't. They want to be home. They want to be home with their family. They want to work. They want to work 9 to whatever the hours are, Monday through Friday. They want to fly on Monday, fly on Friday, be at the show in the middle of the week. That's perfect for business people. Whereas creators, we're working, and I'm a creator, and I'm working too. So I don't take time off for work because I work for a company, but work doesn't get done. So I understand the PTO situation because I balanced that for years, and you worked the industry, so that's not necessarily had to take PTO to go to the event, but the majority, 95% of the people that will be attending will have to, if they're working a regular 9 to 5.
They would prefer not to have to take a vacation time to do that.
So if you have creator events Friday, Saturday, people can get into New York Thursday, Friday, Saturday, go home Sunday, or even fly out late Saturday. And then the business people, you could do
or Thursday, Friday for the business people.
Thursday, Friday for the business people. Saturday again. So, you go heavy on business on Thursday, mixed track on Friday, and then Saturday is all creator track. And then I think you'll have a good mix. Now, that's going to piss the vendors off that have to be there because they're going to not, their people are going to have to be there on Saturday. But for me, I'd rather be Saturday, Sunday. But, I don't think I'll get Sunday.
Well, that's why splitting the difference on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Basically allows everybody to go.
Yeah. And then
go home on Sunday.
Right. And then, so hotel costs, though, the only good thing about being in New York City is you do have options. I think the last time I was in Manhattan, I stayed at like a Hampton Inn, Midtown. I
Yeah.
think it was like $180 a night. If you shop, you can find a place to stay. Now, I don't think, and I might be wrong, especially if you do a Friday, Saturday, people can then do something on a Sunday. They can maybe Saturday night go to a play, Sunday go shopping, go to the World Trade Center, Memorial. There's lots of things to do in New York. I mean, more than you could ever accomplish in a day. So you could leave on a Sunday night and still, in most cases, get back because you're on the East Coast. So even if you're in California, you leave Sunday night, it's still Sunday afternoon. You get back home into California Sunday evening with a direct flight.
And a lot of people are going to come in from the tri-state area here via train.
Right, that's true too.
And just do a 1 day in and out.
Yeah, or if you're coming from another coast, it makes it easier. See, when I was like leaving Dallas, I left Dallas Friday morning bright and early, and I didn't get home until 4 o'clock in the afternoon here on the East Coast, even though it's a 1 hour time change because I'm going against the sun. So anyway, being in New York is smart. We'll see where hopefully it's not in Brooklyn or something. Hopefully they can have it in Midtown or find something like that. It just makes it more convenient from Uber and everything else. But
there is a venue that the Advertising Week folks use. It's an old multi-story shopping mall in Manhattan that they take over, and that's where they hold all their sessions. And it would be great for Podcast Movement to do that. It may not have that big like ballroom type of big stage or something like that, but it would create this situation where there would be separate rooms instead of putting everything in one room, which I think I don't really like that anymore. I mean, I think they thought it was a good idea.
Well, it worked pretty good. Area. It worked pretty good this year. And actually some people liked it because people were on headphones. And for those of you who don't know, everyone was wearing headphones. I saw more people paying attention wearing the headphones than if they were just sitting in a room and they're looking at their laptop.
Well, that's true. Actually, people working booths had headphones on listening to their sessions.
We had stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And it does create a little bit of an antisocial environment.
Yeah, a little.
That's the only problem is, everybody's walking around with headphones on, not talking to each other. So, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, Todd. I mean, I'm not a big fan of everybody walking around with headphones on.
So I think Brian can, even if they do, let's say they do a Wednesday and it's media day. It's just media day. All the media buyers can come in. They can have meetings. They could do that on Wednesday. See, they could make this a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday event.
Well, Todd, they already announced that they're going to do a companion upfront.
Oh, at the same time?
At the same time is what I heard.
Now, the other announcement about...
I don't know if that's been publicly announced.
Maybe I heard something about that. But
so that could be on Wednesday.
Right, it could be. Yeah.
Right.
So the other situation is they're doing South by Southwest. And South by Southwest,
a whole other bag of worms
that's more expensive than even New York.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't have a hotel room now for South by 2026, good luck. You're 30 miles out of town. Or you're paying $500 a night. And a South by ticket, if you get, I think, I haven't been there in a while, but I remember spending at least $1,000 for a South by ticket for the digital portion of the event.
Yeah, I don't know that I agree with them making that event Sounds Profitable or the Podcast Movement Evolutions event.
We won't go.
Needs to be the Sounds Profitable event.
It's South by is just too expensive. Again, I'm serious. It'll be more expensive to not necessarily fly in, but the hotel accommodations.
Oh yeah,
in Austin is it's bad, and. Great entertainment, lots of liquor. There's a party atmosphere. That's my problem too with South by Southwest. If you have 8 hours of stuff, but a lot of business gets done outside, but you've got 8 hours Everyone scatters after that.
So when was the
So,
last time you went to South by Southwest?
It's been 6 or 7 years, at least.
It's been longer for me.
Maybe me too. I'll have to go back and look, and maybe it's changed, but it's still crazy expensive.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It's a very popular event. It's a music
Yep.
as well as a technology event,
Yeah.
and it's a film or video event too. So this whole podcast piece of it is just one piece of the puzzle, and it's an all week long event. It's not like through 2 or 3 or 4 days or something. It's a full, like maybe week and a half.
Yeah. Well, it's 2 weeks for the full event, or 10.
Yeah,
I think it's
right.
10 straight days or something. But
Yeah.
But we did have some interesting meetings at Podcast Movement. The podcast, the PSP, Podcast Standards Project, had a room. We had meetings every single day. The biggest one attended was the HLS. And I kind of got a funny story about this, Rob. So we're talking about, Justin from Transistor was demonstrating on the Fountain app the ability to switch between audio and video.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of over in the corner, and I'm doing ad lib, open RSS, supported video from the beginning. Did you know Apple Podcasts supported video? And I'm and lo and behold, Ted was outside the room. I didn't know it, so I'm like, you guys need to run Ted down. Look for Ted here from Apple. Look at the badge. If they don't have it turned around, I said he's got a beard. Keep an eye out for him. And so little did I know Ted was outside the room, and I'm rallying the troops to go.
Well, he couldn't get in, actually, is what
right,
he told me.
It was full.
The door was blocked, so he couldn't get in.
Well, the door was full. We had a full room.
That's what I mean. He couldn't walk into the room.
Anyway, so Ted kind of caught me later and said, "I heard you," so it's a little bit of fun time there. But the HLS thing is, I think, a great way forward, but it's so early for that piece.
Well, it is, but that conversation has got to start sometime.
Yeah, and it's starting. So
Right.
Blueberry's going to support HLS in the alternate closure. That'll be out in a couple of weeks. We're not going to do the HLS encoding, though. So if you want to do HLS encoding, you can do that on your own.
So you'll just create a form pathway to
we're going to
put
to provide
the URL in.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And then we'll see. And again, I know how many video shows I have. We'll send a mailing out to them and let them know. And then we'll start doing some education. But I hate to say it. I know what it's going to cost me now. The cost is not as bad as we originally thought if you're doing small scale. And just, spin up a couple of servers, do the FFM encoding, whatever it's done. There's a process to create the HLS file. Then it's just data. It's just, then it's just stuff that moves via the CDN. It's all good until it gets really good, and then it becomes expensive. This is the thing. You get a Rogan that's doing HLS, and people move to an alternative app. It could get very expensive very fast. So, if we decide to do HLS at some point, there's going to have to be a limit. There's going to be no way I can just say, okay, for $20, you get all this for free.
So is the cost escalation really just the bandwidth?
Yeah, the escalation is the bandwidth. There is initial upfront encoding, long as you don't, as long as I don't use Amazon to do the encoding. If I use Amazon to do the encoding, it's about $1 per video to do the encoding. And then it's I think it's actually 85 cents. And then it's bandwidth. And the bandwidth.
So what's the spectrum on the encoding? Are you creating the equivalent of a variable bitrate playback?
Yeah.
Type of
and you
file?
have to decide the settings therein. So depending, and that file could get pretty big. But again, if you're just doing small numbers, let's say under 1,000 shows a month, 1,000 episodes a month, you can just do this encoding on a couple of small boxes, $20 boxes, and you don't incur that dollar fee. And you just then just drop and then you got storage and the bandwidth that's involved. But again, if let's just say there was 1,000 shows, I can scale that today. That's no problem. The problem is okay, so now we've got all this HLS done, then three,
Who's
four
going to support
apps.
the playback?
Right. So if Apple in 1 or 2 years, because I don't foresee anything coming any sooner than that. Well, I said when I actually told the Apple folks, I said, hell will freeze over before you support alternate enclosure. Now, I've already been proven wrong because my fiber got blown in front of the house. So I'm waiting to get my fiber hookup here, probably a couple months. So hell did freeze over once already because I said hell would freeze over before I got fiber. And so, I'd love to see lightning strike twice in that regard.
Bad news for Elon, right? Is that what that is?
No, I'll keep one Starlink up once we get
you
fiber.
will?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. I've always had a backup connection. You never know until it's trusted, and it's Frontier. Frontier doesn't have the biggest reputation, but so the video conversation was just, that. And then the Podcast Standards Project, again, had a couple more meetings. We actually had a PSP meeting where we had, I think there's 20 people in there. Adam Curry was there for a little bit. He had to bug out early. He says, "Oh, you guys are crazy. Basically, he said you should be ignoring video." And, it is what it is. Adam's not in the podcast hosting business, and, I have to do what my customers want. But at the same time, there's certain things I can't do because I can't do it for 5 people or 20 or 30. I have to do it for 100.
Well, time will tell on the video side.
Yeah.
I think, podcasting has had a deep history with video. It's run, parallel to some degree with YouTube.
Yep.
So it's, as I've said many times, it's been always a part of this medium. It's just, we went through 10 years where it wasn't.
Yeah,
right?
it wasn't.
So, right.
And people forgot, I think it was more than 10 years. But, I think too is the HLS discussion goes beyond just delivery video. Could be HLS delivery of audio.
It could be audio too.
And then what it really then does is could open up a whole new realm of retention graphics. Because I can very well tell then retention data. We're doing some experience right now in chapter files to look at retention data from chapter file data, hiding little bits in there on a couple of feeds, test feeds, and seeing what kind of signaling we get. But again, if you only got 3 or 4 or 5% maximum of apps supporting chapter playback. Again, and it's one thing James had said to me in a chat session. He says, "Hey, people have different habits on different apps," and I agree. We see that dramatically. People consume data differently on when they get off the Apple Podcast app. That's an intentional switch to a different device to consume a show on a different app. So a Fountain or a Podverse or any of the other podcasting 2.0s, if I've moved a listener to those apps, that listener's a P1. They're going to listen all the way through because they're into it. Whereas an Apple Podcast subscriber may not have the same retention. And I don't know if I can get a true picture. You'd have to disclose that, okay, these 6 apps support what we're showing you for a retention graph. And it's 3% of your total downloads. So is that valuable? Again, we don't know. But again, if Pocket Cast and other apps start adopting, we could get up to 8, 9, 10%, maybe. Maybe.
Yeah, at least we have a fighting chance of pushing back against the data that's going to be available on YouTube as well as Spotify around playback that could at least keep RSS in the game around, this where's the money theme here today around monetization.
And it could get real crazy. You could have an app that would support HLS audio, but also at the same time support download of an MP3.
Yeah.
Someone comes into the app and they're connected and they go play. It could grab the HLS, but if they have no connection, again, there's all kinds of crazy scenarios, but
Well, even YouTube supports that
oh yeah,
today,
right?
right?
That's
I
what
mean,
they. Well, everything on YouTube is HLS.
well, no, but you can check a box and have it store
Oh,
a
really?
copy of it locally.
I
Yeah.
wonder what format that's stored in. I wonder if that's stored in.
Doesn't matter as long as it plays back, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Hmm. I've
So,
never done that.
well, that's the bigger issue, Todd. How many people are really going to do that?
Yeah.
And that's, over the years, we've had this argument on this show that, that download thing needs to be there just in case you're not able to connect to the internet.
Right. But now
Um,
I had Starlink on a flight from San Francisco to Chicago.
mhm.
No cost to hook up. And I was getting speed test of 120 megs down and 20 megs up on a United Airlines flight.
Yeah. Well, I get, whenever I fly on Alaska Airlines, I get free Wi-Fi on board. So
But
I
what?
can
Yeah.
watch videos or listen to audio.
Are they connected to Starlink or who are they connected to?
I have
Don't
no
know.
idea what
Yeah.
the connection is.
Well, up to this point, you haven't been able to watch videos on video is no way you were gonna. I couldn't do that in United, but when Starlink was in, I was able to play stuff back, videos back. So
Well, I could on the
Oh.
airlines on Alaska. I could
So-
play any content.
so maybe they're using Starlink already. Maybe they made the
Possible.
conversion. Yeah.
Possible. I know that they have a close partnership. At least Alaska Airlines has a close partnership with T-Mobile.
Oh.
And I know T-Mobile did a integration deal with SpaceX.
Yeah. So maybe that's all tied together. Who knows?
Could be. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you read through the comments, you got involved in the back and forth on the LinkedIn post.
Yeah.
There's
a blowback.
some people don't like this acquisition.
This merger, well, it gets back to like what I kind of led off with this thing too. It feels like, it's all about the money now. It's all about, and we're moving down this path. Like you said earlier, podcasting is now the mainstream media. So expectations have escalated, and the desires to make revenue and profits have escalated, and expectations of creators have escalated.
Although,
too, which may explain why we don't have as many new creators coming into the medium.
this will be curious. And I asked Mike about this. I said, did any of the people, the new creators, talk to us about monetization?
advertising?
Not a one.
Oh.
So, but they're early. So, if they haven't launched a show yet, or they're just getting started, 2 or 3 things, they're still trying to figure out what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
So, maybe that, we went through the spiel. Yep, we offer monetization, blah, 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 blah. But you look at that commentary in that LinkedIn thread, and there's people that said, I want the business part of this is an integral part. I'm there to that show because of the business aspect. And I respect that,
Sure.
but I think there's
It's
a way
kind of always been there, Todd,
Yeah.
from day one. It's just people, I don't know what it is now. It's just this, it seems like it's every year there's been this tension between independent creators and more professional creators, right? There's like this, I don't know what it is, this jealousy, envy, anger, being upset at celebrities being involved in celebrities have been involved in podcasting since
Right.
2004,
Right.
so there's really nothing new going on here. It's just people are got their panties all bent,
and
folded up, and
Ugh.
are upset about things that are not new, but it bothers them still.
Yeah. So someone sent me a text today. Someone that's well known. They sent me a messenger. Said, "Hey, during your presentation, you talked about there only being 300,000 active shows, and where did you get that?" He didn't believe me, and I sent him the link. Let me see if I can bring this up. I brought I sent him this link. I said, "Here's the podcast index: 314,000 shown in the last 30 days." Now this number's gotten scary. 395 in the last 60. That was well in the, and 461 in the last 90 days.
Yeah, that number was well in the upper 600s.
Right.
Not that long ago.
Not that long ago. So, but
that's the question that the industry needs to be.
This is the question.
Really focused on.
Right.
Why are we not getting new creators?
Right.
And why are people pod fading?
Yeah.
That's what we need to get to the bottom of. But I didn't hear anybody talk about that.
Nobody's willing to talk about it. Everything's good. Now, I'll be honest with you. I heard some stuff coming from some host that I have never heard before. And, I've been saying for a year things have been flat, year and a half. Mm-hmm. And some other hosts are seeing the same thing,
That's what?
It's flat.
Flatter
than a pancake.
Well, all you have to do is look at that.
Correct.
That chart of where the industry is right now.
Now, I think there was and if you're watching live, make sure you say hello and let us know you're here. There was I lost my train of thought here. We're talking about number of podcasts. Shit.
Well,
yeah.
What's causing that to happen? I don't know that that's maybe what Edison Research needs to do. Maybe we've already done this. That's why Tom hasn't dug into this. But that's the number. I think that's the number one issue in the space right now.
So
why?
I got a little clue. I told my entire team, I said, you guys got to listen to the first 45 minutes of Podcasting 2.0, episode 229.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, Adam Curry talked about how he had been at I think it was a church event. I think there was a bunch of, either it was a convention. I don't know. There was a lot of people there from faith-based, and they were all talking about content. And Adam was talking about Godcaster and everything they're doing there. And about the virtues of open podcasting and how you can intermix stuff and it's open and you can't be deplatformed. Well, all the spiel we've been saying for 20 years. And they were shocked. They didn't know. So here's what I think step one. And I said this during the PSP, but I think it just went over everyone's heads. We need to start again as a community, host, creators, anyone that is dependent upon the ecosystem. That's everybody. Maybe not creators. Everyone needs to go out and shout from the top of their lungs the values of open RSS and retrain a new generation of people of the value that open RSS brings. Now, is it going to help make people realize, oh, I can do this on my own? Book authors, as an example, are tired of getting screwed by Amazon and everyone else taking like 80 cents on the dollar of every penny earned. I mean, it's crazy the amount of money that gets, and they're looking for new. So podcasting can help with audiobooks. Podcast can help with content. I mean, we don't have to be just talk.
Right.
So I think we have to start sharing why this space is important. Well, I think we've lost that. Everyone said, oh, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, we'll just do it over there. And it's become the norm.
That's because this conversation is true. It's because the conversation has shifted a lot to video. There has not been an avenue that people understood or thought was even available on the podcasting side for video.
We had creator after creator come up to the table and who were video first that were like doing backflips. We set people up in the booth for VidTopod.
VidTopod, right.
I mean, you mean I don't have to do nothing? All I have to do is set this up, tie it to my playlist, and it happens? Yep. And They were
But you have to make sure that what you create with your video is going to be podcast friendly.
right. And I always added that. I said, just remember,
Yeah.
people are listening too, so you need to think about that. Or you're going to hear a feedback from those audio listeners that they're going to say,
Yeah.
what the hell are you talking about? But again, going back to the RSS thing, podcasting 2.0 is fantastic, but we didn't make sure people understand what RSS is and why it's so valuable, and stop these naysayers from saying, oh, we need to get rid of RSS, And finally, I did hear someone steal one of my lines saying that, open RSS was the last bastion of free speech. I was like, yeah, we got one. Someone else copied my line.
But yet at the same time, Todd, RSS is disappearing from the listeners.
We don't care about the listeners. We don't care. We want people that are thinking about becoming a creator to understand there is an option for them.
But a podcast listener is usually the entry door into becoming a podcaster.
And therein lies the reason why we need to educate everyone. So you set the seed. All you got to do is set the seed. And they only need to be said once. This show's available because of Open RSS and distributed everywhere because of Open RSS. And the person, what is that? And later on, they start their YouTube channel and say, what is that? I heard about this thing called Open RSS and distribution. What is that? That's all we need to do.
Yeah.
And they can Google what is Open RSS and they can learn, because if you have a room full of faith-based ministries that are creating content and they didn't understand the value of Open RSS or what's possible today, there's a problem.
Yeah. It's just the conversation has shifted away from the technical distribution side of things.
We don't have, again, you don't have to talk about the technical. Just talk about the values of Open RSS. Right. We don't have to talk about the mumbo jumbo and the stuff that causes people their eyes to glaze over.
Right.
We don't have
That's
to talk
always been the problem.
Yeah,
right?
we don't need to talk about that. Just set the seed of here's the value of what this provides.
But most people don't even know what RSS means,
that's
what it is, how it works, why it's important to even care about
my point exactly.
Yeah.
So
because it's been removed from the kind of modern zeitgeist. It's seen as something that's old and outdated.
You know why? Because we've made it easy for listeners to get the content via Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
which is a good thing.
Everything it's good, but if we're like
not
you
front
said,
and center anymore like it used to.
Right,
be.
like you said, a lot of creators are born out of listening to shows like this. My tech show.
I've talked to lots of podcasters that you say, can you send me your RSS feed?
Oh yeah, they're like, what?
They go, what's that?
Yeah, even Libsyn's even got it almost buried.
Oh, it's definitely buried.
So we just have to, and again, if we just start this and work on this over the next year or two, I think it'll be good. And it doesn't have to be like this big in your face, this orange logo thing. No. We just need to talk on here's the reason why it's important, and just softly drop it in there so that it sets a trigger in people's brain that they get a little more creative. And going back to what you're talking about, this tension between independent creators and professional media, I don't even know. Here's where the tension is. Some don't give a shit about money. It's those that don't care about making money for their show against those that are hell-bent on making money for the show. That's where there's the little rub.
And there's others that have this kind of generalization that those that are focused on profits are somehow corrupt or evil, or, it's this demonization that happens. And we saw it in your thread.
Right.
Of people that are seen as maybe hard-nosed business people that are considered to be kind of evil, right?
Yeah.
And they can't be trusted. And that is kind of like the undertow of this conflict, is between people that think of themselves as at a higher level of ethics and values and all this stuff compared to these evil capitalists over here. And I think that really cuts to the chase of what's been going on in our culture and our society too.
But I will say that if you look at the podcast host, look at Buzzsprout, look at RSS.com, look at Libsyn, look at us, look at all the others.
Yeah.
We love creators. We're the advocates for creators. We're building tools for creators to be able to do these things. And yet, I was almost vilified. You definitely were, to a point. In some of the comments, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm here. I'm the biggest advocate for content creators. You know, I go to war for creators. You do too, and so does the other companies.
And sure, there's things that happen that are not always good. Humans make mistakes.
Yeah.
Humans do things and then regret them later, but you can't really hold on to that. I mean, some of the things that I was accused of in your thread were things I had nothing to do with.
You know, and if I was in this for the money, I'd have sold the company 3 mergers and acquisition attempts already. I would have sold the company already. I'd have cashed out.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
So am I getting rich? No, I get a salary. You know. So.
But you can't work full time on something or more than full time on something and not make any money from it either. So
you know, live and breathe this thing, you know. So, and I know a lot of other people do too.
Yeah,
it's not just me. You know,
there's this kind of other tension that's going on that there's been a lot of new people that have entered the podcast medium, right?
Yep.
At all levels, either they're producers, they're hosts, they're creators, and oftentimes these corporations, you know, do a clean sweep and lay everybody off and shut companies down, and that's seen as by a certain, you know, group of people seen that as evil, right? And that should never happen. But that's not the reality of the world. You know, it's.
Well, I wasn't going to announce it here. I wasn't even going to talk about it. But on Monday, we sent an email and put a blog post out for all of our creators. We're raising prices for the first time in 20 years.
Yeah.
And why?
Well, I think that's smart, Todd, because we may be coming into a new round of inflation here.
Well,
not too much further in the future here.
It's either that or, well, why do you raise prices? You have to. I can't, you know, people have no clue on how bad.
You've resisted, and the whole industry has resisted raising prices.
But I found out at the show that a couple of companies have raised prices and that it's not been announced. You know, they've raised prices and I go, oh, you did? I raised prices 6 months ago. Oh, we just raised prices 2 months ago.
Oh, right. Just didn't make any big public.
Kept it very, very quiet, you know. And so, you know, here I am spilling the beans, but it's okay. So, you know, it's no secret. You know, I had a 14.7% increase in healthcare this year. And I had like a 13% the year before and 17% the year before and 19. I mean, insane increases in healthcare costs.
That doesn't even count the increased costs and travel and
pay raises, everything, you know, and
all sorts of stuff.
The only thing that hasn't changed in cost is bandwidth.
The more you use, the less you pay.
Right. That price has stayed the same for the last 10 or 15 years.
Right.
And, you know, and then I'm like, but everything else, holy crap.
Yeah.
So I did it reluctantly. I didn't do it because I wanted to. I have to.
Yeah.
You know.
You can't service your customers if you're out of business.
Right.
So.
Right. And, you know, and it's like, I could have went more, but I didn't go more. I did what we needed to do. And thus far, the feedback hasn't been too bad.
Well, if you have to raise it in the future, then you'll address that when
we'll go there. But yeah, I hope to not have to.
All right.
You know, but some of the biggest podcast hosts in space have raised their prices, and you didn't know it.
Yeah. Well,
you know,
I'm sure they're not out there.
No, they're not advertising,
screaming about it on a podcast. So, but anyway, but things have changed. People are, they need to make an income.
Yeah.
People need to, people have thought of over the last few years that podcasting could be like I hate to use the term, a side hustle or whatever, but
Yeah.
I think a lot of people found out that it's a lot of work and it's
Yeah. It's
not
work.
going to generate a lot of money for you quickly. So, and then people get disenchanted with it because maybe they don't grow their audience as fast as the expectations are. And so people pod fade.
Yeah.
And
we do this show a vow of poverty. We make nothing. We've made some money from this show. We've had a couple of great donations. Thank you, RSS.com in the past, and a few others that have sent us, a nice little bonus. But, we, Adam is, his, No Agenda show is doing pretty good, but he works really hard at it.
well, he's also on a donation model.
Yeah,
right?
from the beginning,
So-
and he's got a system, and it works for that show. People just don't write you a $3,000 check that don't love your show. If you're not getting value, or $5,000, or $333, or whatever the number may be, you don't get those types of donations weekly. That and again, they're not making millions of dollars. Their two families are being taken care of, but they have a very, very small team.
So what does that say, Todd, long term about the advertising market in podcasting? I just wonder.
You can make it with advertising if you have a big audience and a small team. You can do well. You can have house payment money
Keep your costs down.
if you stay small. And what I mean by small, a team of 1 or 2.
Which is what Mark Maron did, Joe Rogan did for a long time when he got started. And, I think a lot of this stuff is proven in the history of podcasting. It's just that most people don't know the history. So
At my session, there was at least 50% of the people there had a team outside their podcast, and these are new podcasters. I'm like, how are you doing it? How are you?
they're investing is what they are, Todd.
Well, then it must be the same thing I did when I said on my show, I'm looking for a lawyer, I'm looking for an MBA, I'm looking for a graphics guy, and I'm looking for a programmer. We had no money, and what did we do? We started a business and built it out of our back of our pocket.
Yeah.
So luckily,
that's what a lot of people in this industry are doing right now.
and luckily I had enough of a base of already pre-established business that we were able to, well, none of us went full-time for like 3 years.
Yeah.
We all had regular jobs. So, sweat equity, 20 hours a day.
So Todd, let's shift and talk about podcast movement versus Podfest and what that means.
Chris, you have an opportunity, my friend. You got to promote. People still don't know what Podfest is. What is Podfest? I was asked that at least 10 times.
I talked to Chris just a couple days ago, and that was his first question, was about what happened at Podcast Movement. So
what did you tell him?
He's paying attention.
Well, that's good. So he needs to double down on promotional, whatever he can do to get the word out.
Well, he's already doing his pod tours,
Yep.
and he just finished up last week with his VidPod event down in, was it in Atlanta
or someplace, yeah.
Yeah. And so he's trying to diversify what he's doing and to be more relevant and get out and connect with creators locally. And I think that's really the massive theme that I want to take out of this show today in relation to what happened at Podcast Movement is if you have an event, the local people around you at that event are going to be where you're going to be more likely to pull your creators from.
Yeah.
And so that's what Chris is trying to do. He's going to people, having local events all over the country. I mean, he's doing more cities this year than he did last year.
Yeah, and they did like 20 or something last year.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know if that approach is going to get people to Orlando, but he's gonna chip away at it, and some people will go there to say, well, I'm going to get out of the icy cold January and go to where it's a little bit warmer, maybe.
At the same time,
Right.
with the economic situation the way it is,
Yeah.
local, I think, is going to reemerge as kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think we're already seeing. I got
Yeah.
invited to be a keynote at a new podcasting event down in Houston. So that's coming up here in October, and I'm doing another event, small event down in New Jersey, and they're starting to bubble. I think back to the early days of podcasting with the podcamps,
Yeah.
and I did a lot of podcamps.
Me
in
too,
the
a
early
lot.
years. And those were just fantastic events. I
Yep.
mean, you just walk into these
There's
events.
400 people. Yep.
Yeah, you write the title of the session that you want to put on, and you go find a room and
Yep.
gather people up for it.
Or they
Right.
voted and then they decided
Yep.
who was going to speak right on the spot. And you had 400 people in the local area. It's a lot of work. Angela was doing Pod Camp Ohio or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And, it took, so whoever holds these, it's a huge amount of work. I was talking with a gal that does military spouses, and they're having an event in Washington, D.C. in October. And, basically they don't need a lot of money. They just need a little bit of money. And
and I did a lot of them at the big universities. I did one at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill one time. I flew all the way from Seattle to North Carolina to do this podcamp.
And, the thing that I keep asking on small events is, what's your agenda? If your agenda is 75% video podcasting, well, maybe it's not a podcast event.
Yeah, and I wonder sometimes if that term podcast is being increasingly interchanged with the word creator now.
Yeah.
And because people are thinking themselves as content creators now, because the expectation in the market is that you're creating all sorts of different kinds of content, not just podcasts. But so this balance between creator, show, and podcast is kind of at the inflection point of what's happening with people's perceptions.
You guys are quiet on YouTube today and Facebook. I see you there. You guys aren't making any comments.
Well, we haven't been too controversial on the show today,
No. And when people are quiet in the chat, that's usually an indication that we have people that are eavesdropping. And to be honest with you, I hope that Podcast Movement comes up with one hell of a plan for New York. I hope they come up with something that's going to be spectacular and wanted to be attended by many people. I jokingly said to one of the Sounds Profitable members, I said, well, we know who you're going to get hit up to help support Podcast Movement. I said it jokingly. But I'm sure the Sounds Profitable members will all be, there'll be some sort of deal probably put together, said, and of course, then what is that? That's, again, all business. So, I kind of jokingly said, but it's going to take more than that to make a event very, very successful. And maybe it's impossible. Maybe Podcast Movement can't draw new creators, and maybe it becomes an event where we don't attend as a exhibitor, but we attend as, just attendees and talk to people.
Well, yeah, I think the big question is how much of Sounds Profitable is going to be a part of Podcast Movement.
I'm sure there's going to be huge bleed over.
Is Sounds Profitable and all their partners going to be the primary sponsors of Podcast Movement going forward? And how does that influence the programming too? I know,
I think if they split it, it will probably be okay. If they split it, and of course, I'm not at liberty to say who's been put in charge of, who's going to be reviewing the creator track, because that person asked us not to say who that is. And when he announces it himself, it's going to be fine. But
he already did.
Oh, did he already publicly say?
Yeah. It's already been in a couple different posts in the newsletter already that
Oh,
he's
okay.
going to be. I think the question is, well, what's the scope of the work that he's going to be doing?
Mm.
I think is the big question. You know, is he going to be booking individual speakers to panels and all that kind of stuff? Probably not.
Well, one thing's for sure, because I was watching the panel across from me. A lot of people, I refrain. When I go and have a deck, of course, there's stuff that Blueberry does that I talk about, but I also say, okay, you can get the same feature at X, Y, and Z, naming my
Mhm.
competitors, not and putting stuff up on. I try to be as transparent as possible and
Mhm.
give credit where credit's due. But boy, some of those presentations were just outright. This is what we do. This is how you do it on our platform, and a whole pitch. And I was just like,
Yeah.
that has to be eliminated, outright
Yeah.
eliminated, so that we can have true training. And
Right. What's the purpose of educational content if it's not educational content, if it's just pitching a particular platform
right,
or a brand, and the people that are up on stage are not really educators. Maybe they're just business people, but they're not really, skilled at education. Maybe they don't belong up on stage.
yeah, I think you have to have strict agreements. And again, even if Blueberry is hosting a
Yeah.
booth, doesn't mean Blueberry should qualify to have a Blueberry team member speak the the topic and the content of the training
Yeah.
needs to be such that people get value of it, and you're not promoting your
Your company,
product.
or you're not even talking about your
Right.
company.
Exactly.
I did that and I know you did too, Todd, for
Yeah.
many years at Podcast Movement. I'd moderate panels
Yep.
and do all sorts of stuff. And, to moderate a panel puts you in a position where you need to, kind
Yeah.
of be all inclusive, right? Not so much driving a certain company or
Yep.
brand or ideology or something like
Yeah.
that. It was more about, you know, how do I extract value out of this panelist that is helpful to the
I
audience, right?
gave Dave Jackson was in charge of the creator track for one event on the previous show before Podcast Movement. And Dave had said, how do I navigate this? And I said, Dave, everyone has an agenda. Doesn't matter who they are.
Right.
When you get a presentation pitch, you got to think of what is the agenda of Blueberry for telling this, submitting this, a Blueberry employee. What is the agenda? Is there
Right.
agenda or is there training? I said everyone's going to have an agenda. I don't care who you are.
Yeah. It's going to slip in a little
It's
bit,
going to
but
slip in. But if you, long as that person is understanding that they're not up there to promote their product and say we have a special for you this month for $29.95,
mhm.
um, I might use examples, but I try to just tie it to my own show on the benefit of doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So
Todd, do you happen to know what the history has been at Sounds Profitable events? Um,
no,
has it been kind of a pay for play kind of
no,
a thing? I would
I,
imagine it to some degree it would be.
I don't know. I haven't attended their event. I'm not a member.
Yeah, I've been to one of them. And it did come across as a little bit of a pay to play
Now,
type of a format.
an upfront will be a pay to play for an upfront. That's all the way, all upfronts work.
Yeah, but it's not catering to creators.
No, that's that's selling to media
Right.
buyers. So they're buying a
Right.
spot to promote their shows.
So that's a
And
different
right,
expectations of the
and
audience.
we've never done an upfront. First of all, I couldn't afford $10,000 for 10 minutes or whatever they give you at the IB one.
Yeah,
So
it's expensive. I
it's
know that.
expensive. But if you have a big show or two or three that you can get on a media buyer's buying block and they're big enough, well,
Hmm.
that's a rounding error for them. That's just doing
Right.
business.
Right.
So
Yeah, I'd like to see a return more of this concept of a podcast festival. Not so much in the Podfest type of orientation, but kind of like what we saw many years ago, where there would be live on stage podcast recordings, right? That people could either buy tickets to or buy a block, and have those shows be available to fans too. So you have kind of this full spectrum. You get the fans, the audience involved in podcast movement.
That's where you could have
creators, and then you get the business people.
Yeah, I don't know how you. New York's big enough to support that. I don't know. We'll see. We're already over time here, Rob.
I realize that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, is the idea that podcast is purely about revenue, or is there a way that we can stay true to its original roots while embracing the future? Have we done that here?
I think we've talked about it. I don't think we're done talking about this friction between profit, revenue, and content creators, but there is a lot of friction there. So we're not done.
Yeah. I don't know if we're going to answer the question forever. There's always going to be a certain segment of people that are going to be pissed off.
Right.
But I think, well, it's going to be interesting to see what the next year is. And what Brian decides to do. So Brian, we're watching. No pressure. But,
and also Chris Kremetzos too.
Yeah, Chris too.
How is he going to respond to this?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Chris, I'd love to see. I know Orlando is your home, but I would love to see an event somewhere else too. But that's just Todd's thought. But he's got such ties to Orlando, and it makes such good sense bringing families in, and I understand.
And it taps into that element that we're talking about here, Todd, is pulling from your local community.
Yeah.
With creators.
And if he can expand that window of creators coming in, and when someone says, "Yeah, I'm from Texas," "Yeah, I'm here from LA," or wherever, because there is definitely, it's pretty regional. At least that's the way it's been, and it's gotten better.
Well, and also is podcast movement going to be in New York every year now? That's a big question. Or is it going to bounce between New York, Chicago, and LA? Is that the game, or
we'll see?
That we don't have an answer to yet.
No. But again, it's all dependent upon how they're able to get enough outreach to see if how many people are willing to come from New York that are not a train ride away or an Uber away. So, because you can come in from upstate, you come in from Boston. There's you look where you live. You can how long does it take you to get into the city from where you live?
About an hour and a half.
See, so you're in striking distance. You can leave in the morning and be there and come to a one-day event. You could come back home that evening.
Yeah, I do.
It'd be a long day.
The time. Yeah, I jump on the train and head down, and it takes me to Grand Central, and then I just go wherever I need to go from there.
Yeah, I got a 2-hour drive to Detroit and 2 hours to New York. So, and then the cost of a bed for a couple of nights and the ticket cost, and so it's going to be interesting. So anyway, there's our feedback on podcast movement and everything that happened there. Overall, again, we'll see what happens. And I've got close to 100 people to follow up with, and I'd love to have it been 250 or 300 like it used to be, but I'll take 100 because last year it was 37 the year before.
That doesn't pay the bills.
That does not pay the bills.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Todd.
So, okay. Anyway, if you guys have questions or comments, you guys have been real quiet today. Todd, Todd at blueberry.com, BLUBRRY.com, at Geek News on X. And by the way, those of you who watched SpaceX thing last night, wow, pretty exciting. And then on Mastodon, at Geek News, at geeknews.chat on Mastodon. Rob?
I can be found, pretty much in all the social platforms. I think that's where I'm at under Rob Greenlee, and so I'm on X at Rob Greenlee and LinkedIn and Facebook and all that stuff. So you can easily find me. So if you want to send an email to me about the show, or if you have any kind of topic suggestion or any kind of feedback, we'd love to hear from you. That's at robgreenlee@gmail.com is a great place to send me an email.
And Chris and Brian and Tom, you guys are welcome to come on anytime. And let's give
James.
Yep, James. We'll give you guys some time to get, because I know you guys are trying to figure out a venue. You're probably very, very busy, but when you get a plan, come on and talk about it. So
yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Rob, and we'll see everyone here on the New Media Show. Everyone, take care. We'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.